My wife told me I was a worthless failure and that a true man would meet her needs. Then she left me for my brother. They mocked me, calling me a joke, and kissed right in front of me while I signed the divorce papers. I just laughed. But 2 weeks later, she was at my doorstep, betrayed, homeless, and begging like a dog. I never thought I'd be sharing my life drama on Reddit, but here I am at 2 a.m. because I can't sleep. For context, I'm Marcus, 34, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had a decent life with my wife Jessica, 32. We had been married for 7 years and together for 9. We weren't wealthy. We had a modest 3-bedroom house. I drove a paid-off Honda, and she had a Mazda that we were still financing. The first warning sign appeared in February when Jessica started changing her phone password. We had always shared our passwords, for convenience, but suddenly she was turning her phone face down when I entered the room and taking it to the bathroom. At first, I didn't think much of it. Then came the girls' nights, now twice a week instead of once a month. She would come home smelling like cologne. When I mentioned it, she called me controlling and accused me of discouraging her from going out while I stayed home playing video games. The intimacy stopped around March. Whenever I tried to initiate, she claimed to have a headache or wasn't in the mood. I didn't push it, thinking we'd get through it. What should have raised alarms was how she dressed differently when my brother Elliot, 31, came over for our monthly dinners. She'd wear the top I always complimented and spend extra time on her makeup. I felt happy she was putting in effort for family. Elliot was always the charming brother. He played sports, dated attractive women, and worked in sales, driving a BMW he could barely afford. We weren't very close growing up, but we got along as adults. Last month, Jessica suggested a Memorial Day cookout. I took the day off to prepare, while she ran errands, promising to be back by noon. At 11:30, I realized I needed propane, so I texted her. No response. I called, and it went straight to voicemail. I decided to get it myself. The hardware store was near an old motel, one of those single-story places with doors opening to the parking lot. There it was. Jessica's Mazda parked next to Elliot's BMW in front of room 118. I sat there, staring. Part of me wanted to kick the door down, but a strange calm took over. I took photos of their cars and went home to wait. Jessica returned at 12:30, all smiles with a story about running into a friend at Target. I simply nodded and asked for help with the coolers. The cookout started at 2. Elliot arrived at 2:30, blaming traffic. I watched them closely, avoiding eye contact and keeping my distance while stealing occasional glances when they thought no one was looking. I played the perfect host, while internally reinterpreting 7 years of memories with this new information. After everyone left, Jessica kept giving me strange looks as we cleaned in silence. When she finally asked what was wrong, I told her I had seen her car at the motel next to Elliot's. She didn't deny it. She admitted to an affair lasting 8 months while I worked overtime for her vacation, cared for her during COVID, and planned our anniversary. I told her to leave, but she refused, citing her name on the mortgage. Instead, I packed a bag and went to my parents, giving vague explanations about problems. The next day, I met with a lawyer. In our state, adultery matters in divorce proceedings. I showed him the car photos and text screenshots from our shared iPad, where her phone had carelessly synced. 2 days later, Jessica wanted to meet at a coffee shop. Elliot was with her, his arm around her shoulders, wearing the diamond tennis bracelet I never bought glinting on her wrist. They claimed they didn't mean for this to happen but couldn't help their feelings. Jessica proposed that she get the house, her car that I helped pay for, and half our savings. I'd keep my retirement and mutually agreed upon personal belongings. I refused. She insisted she had contributed equally to the house. Elliot tried to mediate, saying they wanted to start their life without this hanging over them. That's when Jessica hissed, "You're a useless failure. A real man would satisfy me. Elliot gives me what you never could. Just sign and let us be happy." I walked out, saying I'd see them in court. 3 days later, at my lawyer's office, they sat holding hands while signing initial divorce papers. Elliot kissed her temple right in front of me and the lawyers. I laughed, genuinely catching them off guard. When Jessica asked what was funny, I simply said, "Not yet," and kept signing. That was 2 weeks ago. Jessica moved out while I was at work and is now living in Elliot's tiny apartment, which he can barely afford. They're posting couple selfies on Instagram with heart emojis while I've been quiet, planning and preparing. Update 1. Thanks to everyone who commented. On my last post, I didn't expect such a response. Here's the update many asked for. It's been a month since Jessica left me for Elliot. The first week was tough. I barely slept, lost my appetite, and binged on Ozark while ignoring friends. Classic post-breakup behavior. But on day 8, I woke up feeling lighter, as if my body had finally processed that I was free from someone who didn't respect me. That morning, I found Jessica's old laptop in the spare room closet. She upgraded to a MacBook last year, but kept this as a backup. I powered it up just to check for important files before wiping it. The laptop took forever to boot, typical HP, but her Chrome was still logged in. In her bookmarks was a folder labeled Wedding Ideas. The timestamps shocked me. She had been saving venues, dresses, and honeymoon destinations for 6 months while we were still married. The woman who said we couldn't afford to fix our leaking shower had bookmarked a $33,000 destination wedding package. Her Google Photos showed her and Elliot at expensive restaurants, wearing clothes I had never seen. One photo showed them toasting with champagne in a hotel room dated 3 days after my birthday when she claimed to be working late. In her Gmail, I found confirmation emails for credit card applications. 3 new cards in 4 months, all maxed out to over $177,000 in new debt I knew nothing about. In our state, debt acquired during marriage is joint responsibility unless proven otherwise. I called my lawyer immediately and spent that night creating a spreadsheet of her spending, designer clothes, weekend getaways, a $900 bracelet, all while telling me we needed to budget better. The next day, my buddy Chris, who works with Elliot, texted, asking to meet for a beer at the bar. He revealed that Elliot had been bragging about getting my house and planning renovations once the divorce was final. Chris also mentioned that Elliot had borrowed $2,000 from him 2 months ago, plus more from other co-workers, while his car payment was 2 months behind. This explained a lot. Elliot had always lived beyond his means, but I never realized how bad it was. Checking our mortgage documents confirmed my suspicions. Jessica had insisted we keep finances mostly separate, but I had put down the entire down payment from my grandfather's inheritance. I also remembered my recent raises that Jessica didn't know about. I had been directing the difference to a separate account, planning to surprise her with a vacation. The next morning, I closed our joint account, transferring my portion to my personal account. When Jessica texted, asking why she couldn't access it, I didn't respond. I ignored Elliot's voicemail too. Instead, I emailed Jessica screenshots of her secret cards, wedding bookmarks, and photos with Elliot during her late-night work. When she wanted to talk, I directed her to my lawyer. That weekend, I found another bombshell, a loan agreement where Elliot borrowed $155,000 2 years ago for investment opportunities. He had made minimal payments for 6 months, then nothing. I texted him, demanding a payment plan for the remaining $12,500 by Friday, or I would pursue legal collection. When he played the family card, I reminded him the contract had no sleep, with my wife exemption clause. Meanwhile, I started hitting the gym, reconnecting with friends, and eating proper meals. Small steps forward. Through mutual friends, I heard Jessica and Elliot were already having problems. Bills, cramped living spaces, and Elliot's flirting with waitresses wasn't charming anymore. My mother-in-law, Sandra, showed up unannounced one day. She revealed Jessica had asked to borrow money, claiming I was being financially abusive during the divorce. But Sandra had seen their Instagram posts of restaurants and weekend trips and wasn't buying it. Before leaving, Sandra gave me a USB drive from Jessica's old computer. It contained emails between Jessica and Elliot going back 18 months. The affair started earlier than I thought. There were also messages to friends where she complained about how boring I was and how she settled for security. One email from Elliot to Jessica revealed their plan. Once this is done, we'll sell the house, pay off my debts, and start fresh. Marcus will never know how bad things really are. Yesterday, my lawyer confirmed the new evidence strongly favors me. The house will likely remain mine, and I might be protected from her secret debt. As I left his office, Jessica posted on Facebook, "Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the greatest happiness," with a picture of them at some restaurant. I smiled. Tomorrow, Elliot's loan comes due, and my lawyer has prepared the collection paperwork. Jessica's hidden debt is documented for divorce proceedings, and my promotion came with stock options that just vested. They thought they were celebrating a new beginning. They had no idea they were dancing on a sinking ship. Update 2. The support on my last post has been overwhelming. Here's what happened after I pulled the financial rug out from under Jessica and Elliot. It started with a Venmo notification while I was at the gym. Elliot requesting $20,500 for an emergency car repair. The audacity of this guy. I screenshotted it and continued my workout without responding. That afternoon, Elliot's landlord called, looking for him. He was 2 weeks late on rent and had listed me as an emergency contact. The landlord mentioned Elliot had never completed the paperwork to add Jessica to the lease, so she was living there unofficially. 3 days after sending the loan collection notice, I spotted them at my local coffee shop. Jessica was gesturing wildly while Elliot stared at his phone, jaw clenched. Their body language screamed tension. When she grabbed his arm, he yanked it away and stormed out, leaving her standing there, face flushed. I slipped out before she noticed me. Later that week, Chris texted that Elliot got fired. He'd been showing up late, missing deadlines, and finally cursed out his manager after a client complaint. Security escorted him out. The next day, I received a response to my loan collection notice from a discount legal service claiming the loan was a family gift, despite the signed contract. My lawyer filed a lien against Elliot's car, his only asset. During our weekly call, my mum said Elliot claimed I was trying to bankrupt him out of vindictiveness. After reviewing the loan documents, my dad acknowledged it was legitimate. They also declined Elliot's request for money. On Monday, I noticed a moving truck at my neighbor Mike's house, with Jessica's Mazda parked behind it. Mike confirmed via text that Elliot and Jessica were buying his place, closing next week. How were they buying a house? Elliot was unemployed, Jessica's credit was trashed, and they had no savings. Public records showed they were getting a mortgage from a predatory lender with only 3.5% down and astronomical monthly payments. Their loan application listed Elliot's income as $85,000, his old salary, plus imaginary consulting work, and omitted Jessica's credit card debt. Most concerning, it listed expected proceeds from the pending real estate sale of my house. They were counting on getting half my house's value, which is primarily in my name due to my down payment. I authorized my lawyer to send a cease and desist letter to the mortgage company. The mortgage was immediately flagged for review. 3 days later, Jessica showed up unannounced, eyes red, hair in a messy ponytail. She screamed about me ruining everything while I calmly stated I was protecting what's legally mine. When she claimed the house was half hers, I asked about their plan to sell it for Elliot's debts. Her face went pale. She hadn't known. I'd seen that email. She explained Elliot lost money in crypto and borrowed from friends trying to recover. When she mentioned they were losing the apartment with nowhere to go, I felt a momentary twinge of sympathy. Then I remembered their betrayal. I told her she should have considered the consequences before planning her wedding while we were still married. Her shocked expression said everything. I mentioned that Chrome saves everything, suggesting incognito mode for next time. She slammed the door on her way out. Later, Elliot's voicemail mixed anger and desperation, claiming I'd made my point and won while they were drowning. I didn't call back. At the grocery store, Jessica's friend Amber told me Jessica had discovered messages between Elliot and some girl from his gym. History was repeating itself. Jessica had asked to stay with Amber, who refused out of loyalty to me. The next morning, I received our divorce hearing date, 3 weeks away, my lawyer called with news. Elliot had agreed to a payment plan and dropped any claim to my house in exchange for not pursuing the full loan amount immediately. That evening, I found a handwritten letter from Jessica in my mailbox. She'd made a terrible mistake. Elliot wasn't who she thought. Nothing worked out as promised. She'd left him and was staying at the extended stay on Riverside, asking me to call. I stared at the paper, emotions swirling. Instead of responding, I took a photo of the letter and texted it to her mother. Jessica might need your help. Then I blocked Jessica's number. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. Final update. This is my final update. Thanks to everyone who's followed along. Sharing this with strangers has been surprisingly therapeutic. 2 weeks passed after I blocked Jessica's number, and life settled into a new normal. Work, gym, and occasional beers with friends. The divorce hearing was approaching, and I'd started looking at apartments for a fresh start. Last Saturday morning, someone pounded desperately on my front door. I checked my Ring camera to find Jessica standing there, looking nothing like her usual polished self. Unwashed hair, baggy hoodie, duffel bag at her feet. I opened the door but blocked the entrance. She begged for 5 minutes, claiming she had nowhere to go. I let her in, only to avoid neighborhood drama, making it clear her time was limited. She perched on the edge of my couch and revealed she'd left Elliot after discovering he was cheating with multiple women. When I commented on the irony, she flushed with embarrassment. Her story unraveled quickly. Elliot's non-existent job prospects, lies about money from his parents, selling her car without permission for down payment money that actually went to gambling debts. The final straw was discovering he'd taken out a loan in her name using her social security number. When I suggested reporting him for identity theft, she explained she couldn't prove she hadn't authorized it since they lived together. The police would see it as a domestic dispute. Her request was predictable, a place to stay in my spare room for a week or two. I refused immediately. She accused me of enjoying her suffering, while I maintained I was simply setting boundaries and not responsible for fixing her self-created mess. As she left, she delivered a backhanded compliment. Elliot had told her I was boring and easy to manipulate, but he was wrong. I was the one with a backbone. 3 hours later, Elliot showed up, looking even worse. Unshaven, bloodshot eyes, the same wrinkled polo from his Instagram post days earlier. He demanded to know what Jessica had told me, insisting she was lying and had ruined everything. He tried shifting all the blame to her. She maxed out cards, pressured him about buying a house they couldn't afford, and expected a lifestyle he couldn't provide. I noted it sounded exactly like what she'd done during our marriage, which seemed to surprise him. When he asked to come inside, I refused. His friendly facade dropped as he reminded me we were brothers. I corrected him. We were brothers, and brothers don't sleep with each other's wives. His desperation turned to anger as I refused to help. He brought up Jessica's complaints about me being boring in bed and existing instead of living. I responded that despite those complaints, she stayed for 7 years until she thought a better option came along. This pushed him over the edge. He lunged forward, but I slammed the door just as he pounded on it and shouted before eventually leaving. I called the non-emergency police line to document the incident. The next day, Jessica texted from a new number, asking to meet. I didn't respond. She texted again about needing closure, and I blocked that number too. On Monday morning, she ambushed me in my work parking lot, explaining they were both homeless after Elliot gambled everything away. She'd pawned her wedding ring for a motel room. When I asked whether it was my ring or the one Elliot promised her, silence answered everything. I reminded her about Friday's divorce hearing. She admitted she could no longer afford a lawyer and would represent herself. As I walked away, she grabbed my arm, asking what happened to the kind person I used to be. I explained I was still kind, just not to people who betrayed me. That evening, my lawyer informed me Jessica had filed for emergency spousal support, claiming financial hardship. He assured me it wouldn't work, given the evidence against her. Friday's hearing. Jessica sat alone in borrowed-looking clothes while I wore my best suit. The judge quickly reviewed our case and denied her support request, citing her documented misconduct in the affair. The divorce was granted, with the house and retirement accounts remaining mine. Jessica received her personal belongings and the responsibility for her secret credit cards. The judge advised her to pursue identity theft charges against Elliot if her claims were true. Outside the courthouse, Jessica approached me one last time. Her eyes were clear, her voice steady. "I made the biggest mistake of my life," she said. "Not just the affair. I took for granted everything we had." I nodded, but said nothing. "Is there any chance?" she started. "No," I interrupted. "There isn't." She nodded slowly. "I understand. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I hope you find what you're looking for." I said, "Jessica," and walked away. That was 2 months ago. I sold the house and moved to a condo downtown. I've been seeing someone new, not serious yet, just coffee dates and conversations. I heard Jessica moved back with her parents, and Elliot left town after his car was repossessed. Sometimes I think about what might have happened if I'd been a different kind of man, the kind who lets people walk all over him, who accepts betrayal with a smile. But I'm not that man. I never was. And that's the real reason they both ended up on my doorstep, broken and desperate. They mistook kindness for weakness, stability for boring, dignity for pride. They were wrong.